Good night. Hey, what's going on, Michael? I'm driving, so I couldn't write to you. But the purpose of what I wrote was to create dialogue. What I said was they were crawling under a rock. And the reasoning behind that actual wording was because when people put information in front of other people, they tend to not be able to discuss the information at hand. It's easy for a person who disagrees with Trump to attack people that chose Trump to be president. It's another thing for both groups to discuss something, to break it down. There's several pipelines being built right now, if I'm not mistaken, and there's several pipeline leaks within the region. Now, the people, the Native Americans within the region, do not want those pipelines within the area because they're afraid of runoff leaking into their lakes and streams and destroying their lands and the health of their kids. And since it's their property and it can cause issues by the pipes being built there, they've complained about it. Now, it's found that they're going to build the pipeline anyway, regardless of those people's views. So that's one of the discussions. Now, regardless of how old that pipeline is, they're responsible for maintaining that pipeline so those things don't happen. Which also means they have to have regions within the pipeline itself where they can shut down, tear down, and put together. If they don't, after this amount of time, just like what happened in Michigan, just like what happened in Missouri, just like what's happening in Louisiana, the state needs to deal with stuff like that. This is why people are mad about the levees getting broken in Louisiana, why people in Flint, Michigan are upset. It's the responsibility of those in charge to make the necessary decisions to fix things when they mess up. And something simple as calling a state of emergency to get funding so you can fix something is that right there shows competence or incompetence of a person. However, in this specific situation, the whole entire point is if a person's making a decision, and which is what I'm trying to say, is which I'm hoping to get people to come to the table to have dialogue on, because I don't care if Obama's in for 4 years, 2 years, or 30 years. What I do care about is if Obama's not doing what we need him to do, we're able to pull him out and replace him instantly, not waiting until his term is ended. Now, that's the same thing I feel about senators. I don't care how long they're in office, as long as they're doing their best that they can to get things taken care of. If in fact they're not doing it, then we have a huge problem on our hands. So, in an attempt to force dialogue, sometimes you say things so that you can bring dialogue together. One of the things is that over the last week or two, I've been having discussions with some brothers and some sisters, and the situation is that now they can't own up to maybe making a mistake on anything. Now they can't explain or express history of what is lawful and unlawful to do. Another example is when Obama was in office, Republicans sued him all the time to scare him or to get him to not do what they wanted to do, him to do. They only vetoed the man once, maybe twice. I could have been twice. But some presidents have been vetoed 14 times. The Republicans have changed bills that he's had written or prepared or that he wanted to see go through. and they altered it. So he spent the whole entire time that he was with them fighting back and forth. The next thing is that the amount of governors and the amount of mayors and the amount of city council and the amount of Senate that Trump has versus when Obama was in office is another stroke of where his power goes. Now, Trump has been signing a lot of executive orders the last couple of weeks, and a lot of people are saying, now that's real power. Obama could have did this too. Well, Obama did sign executive orders. He didn't sign as much as Bush or Clinton, even though the Republicans were making it out as if he was signing so many bills into fruition and doing so much things to this country that it's ridiculous. He's going too far all the time, kind of thing. They blew it out of proportion. And that's where biased news comes in, but that's another discussion. Anyway, according to this discussion, though, Trump is also doing those same things, and he has the backing of the Senate, and he has the backing of Congress, and he has the backing of lawyers. Right now, though, the ACLU is fighting Trump on some of the things that he's doing, one being immigration, which would have been lovely to see what they would have tried to do with the pipeline, but unfortunately, since I'm always at work, like I'm driving around in the dark right now, I'm so tired, it's hard to chase all the stuff that's on the internet about this stuff. In any case, the thing is that when stuff goes wrong and when there's data showing why people don't want things to be done, this is not the stuff that people are able to admit to and come to a consensus. And I think that's an immaturity on both sides of the fence. Because if it's anybody else, they would be cheerleaderish. And they would grab that information and stuff it in front of everybody's faces. And be like, oh, see, I told you so, I told you so. But the whole thing is that you need to be able to create positions of conversation so that we can come to a consensus. I think that Trump being in office is a perfect time for us as American citizens, because of the fact that with all these people backing him and all these people having a viewpoint on what is actually right and wrong, if in fact we as a people see that having this system in place does not work, we can get off of blaming everything on a president, recognize that the whole entire party just doesn't have it all together, flush the whole entire party, or go ahead and change stance on another party or create another party in general, all for the sake of ascension for the nation. But in 35 years of my life, I have not seen that happen. And right now, what I do want to see is the people that are picking these leaders come to the table and discuss stuff, instead of crawling under a rock, so to speak, when stuff goes down, or not being sharing and trying to create a discussion on topics that these guys are doing in the world that we end up now having to deal with, and they are able to have plausible deniability all the time. One being EPA not being allowed to discuss or have topics anymore on Twitter or any other social network, but Trump is having topics on some serious, sensitive issues in the world. That, we must also be real, the man is distracting us. He's distracting us from what he's really doing. And until we start getting better at paying attention to stuff like that, then we're going to have a problem. Again, the Republicans, as far as a 1950s pipeline with anybody who recently voted for Trump, they have nothing directly to do with what happened to that system. Maintenance is an important issue that should be dealt with on that thing. But the man that you just selected just requested that several more pipelines go up. And be sure, before that pipeline is complete in its totality, there will be several leaks. And there's been several articles within the last couple of days of leaks over the last 20, 30 years of multiple pipelines, recent pipelines, and the ramifications of those pipeline breaks. I think that when we say we follow somebody, or we are agreeing to following somebody, the same way when I voted for Obama, I was able to track all his stuff down and talk about it. I think this is the same thing too. Unfortunately, I see quite the opposite. I see quite a few people not being able to stand up when they say they agree or they're for someone or something, when they should in fact be willing to speak objectively about the issue at hand.